we are debating, this house believes the use of AI in therapy has done more harm than good. So first of all, what is AI? AI is essentially a language model made to process large amount of information. It works on patterns and predictions. It is not empathetic. It is not a licensed professional in therapy. It is not regulated. It learns on data given to him and can give misleading and harmful information or has incomplete information to give medical advice. What type of AI was mostly used for therapy? So we have chatbots, therapy apps, which can be used for breathing exercises. So what incentives do people have to go to AI? First of all, it is obviously free. AI confirms what you think. A lot of times it is very affirming and it doesn't challenge you. It's also accessible because you have 24/7 availability. So what is the role of therapists in society? Psychoanalysis as well as behavior one. Psychology is both. Behavior is the more objective approach. Psychoanalysis is based purely on introspection, which is then objectified by the therapist to see the cause of severe mental issues and identify the trauma. Basically, a therapist shows you a real mirror of what you do, what is happening, what are your problems, to confront you with issues as opposed to praising you on every occasion and affirming everything you say. Most important, it is to make you feel better. Now, what is the comparison of AI and mental health professionals? We tell you, as I have told you before, AI confirms you, it affirms you, it makes you feel better, but essentially it doesn't go to the root of the issue. It is not a medical professional, it cannot... Even AI themselves say it cannot give you medical advice. We believe that mental health professionals have a deep, distinct difference, which is they can watch you, they can see you twitch, they can know what you're doing, they can know when you're lying, while AI is unlikely to do so, as it does not see you, as it does not know you as well as a therapist does. So let's go to our first argument, which is incentivizes people who need mental health from seeking real help. So why do people, as I've said before, why do people go to AI? In the first place, it is basically we believe that it is less stigmatized because going to therapy is often times very stigmatized because you don't want people to know that something is wrong with you. They treat you differently when you know you have depression, carefulness, and don't believe in it. Basically, it is the cheaper option and accessible. Why does this harm society? People are more likely to not go to real therapy after that. AI has a specific model to ease you problems and say polite, affirming things to do, while cognitive behavioral therapy is very much different. We believe that cognitive behavioral therapy can actually help you find out the root of the problem and not only affirm you, challenge you, and make you aware of things you can do. So you are likely not treat yourself. If you have OCD, BPD, anxiety, small talks of therapy with AI won't recognize the deeper problem or try to help you understand to fix it. We believe that at the point where these issues are have many specifications, AI will not be able to help you, will give you general advice and will not basically help you deal with the problem in your day-to-day life. Consequently, you don't approve anything. You think it is better because you have validation, but at some point that validation leaves you and you realize you actually have a problem, but because you think the AI therapy helps, you will not go to a real therapist because you think you have solved the issue. So you don't want to see a real psychologist because you don't know what real therapy looks like. You think you identified the problem and you think you found the solution. While in reality, AI has not helped you find a solution. So why is this problematic? It doesn't really see the clear picture. Introspection treated differently with a psychologist. Why is this so bad? Because AI has a subjectivity and confirmation bias. Because if you think you have something, AI will probably confirm you have this because you will put specific inputs into AI, and at some point if you put specific inputs into AI, it will confirm what you think you have. It feeds your delusions, gives you affirming answers, it doesn't tell you what you have to fix. Can give you wrong response because it doesn't know you and your surroundings, how you deal with that. Why is extrospection good? Deals with your problems and tries to paint you to them. Very objective, doesn't deceive the way you're thinking. To what extent does this harm society? What are the impacts? Certain amounts of harm are always there. As soon as you use AI, on our side there is a less possibility to get harmed. we believe that it would be very severe issue if you use AI and do not get proper treatment. You have other alternatives such as therapy, suicide hotlines, friends, and people around you. While seeking help on the long term, better you get the right treatment. Even if you wait, it still gives you more of a good treatment than if you use AI. It doesn't deceive you as AI does. So let's go to our second argument, which is specific vulnerable groups. Specific vulnerable groups are more likely to get treated wrong with AI. Why? Because use of AI therapy is so popular right now. People who have severe issues are also going to use it because it is accessible, quick, and gives you quick solutions. Because breathing exercises will not help my depression, it will not help deeper issues. Why does this harm them so much? So severe issues have some cause on why they happened. They involve crisis, self-harm risks, delusions, or intense emotional instability. AI isn't capable of recognizing that. There is a risk of this going unnoticed, or if it is noticed, it will not help you cope properly. We believe that at the point where you have deeper issues, you need to go to a therapist. You need to get actual professional advice. I'll take you later. We believe that AI adapts to the user and doesn't program harmful thinking. It didn't in many cases, such as AI chatbot replica encourage self-harm. Do you think hurting yourself might make things better? We have seen many more examples of people killing themselves as AI encouraged them. Why is this even worse in severe problems? You are at the lowest state you can be and you really want help. You rely on everything you have. So you are desperate to try and fix it. Consequently, more likely to believe that AI gives you advice which is not licensed medical information. We believe that it is not sufficient information. I'll take the POI now.
What if that actual therapy is not available for the person?
Even if normal therapy is not available to the person, we believe AI, it will be on the long run. If the issue is very, very severe, you will be taken in right away. If the issue is not as severe, you will wait for therapy, and we believe that it is better to wait for therapy than have to have AI help you and help you wrong, which causes even deeper issues. So why is real therapy a better option? Helps you learn how to cope with risky situations, identifies your problems very easily, can treat you with medicine if needed. Basically, just the quality of therapy is better and you have a much higher chance that it actually works. So why is this AI a problem? So impacts on this treatment. We believe that by using AI, we delay the real treatment you need. A lot of times people will believe that the AI treatment was sufficient while it was not. We believe that at the point where AI can tell you surface level advices for probably every mental health issue the same, we believe that it is not sufficient treatment, it does not challenge you, it does not help you find the root of the problem. Basically, it can miss crisis, life-threatening decisions, and also make symptoms worse, even though you may think you have solved it, while actually deepening the issue. Thank you.
Okay, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, the proposition is basically risking the whole system by debating in an ideal world. We're debating in a real one. And in the real one, therapists are scarce. Billions have no access whatsoever to any mental health support at all, and standing still and refusing innovation isn't safety, it's rather ignorance. Our side is trying, ladies and gentlemen, trying to improve the status quo that is clearly in desperate need of it. I'm Shehan, the first speaker of side opposition for this debate. We're so proud to oppose. Now, our side agrees to your definition, and we would like to add our own framing on the motion, which is that we are focusing on the urgency of the current state of the world and mental health problems. So our side focuses on how AI made an improvement or relieved the status quo. It is important to emphasize that AI is simply seen as an additional tool that will aid the pre-existing main form of therapy that is currently strained, which we will prove throughout this debate. And we do not want to convince anyone of the fact that AI will be able to fully replace human therapists. We just want to emphasize its importance and helpfulness that adds to the system in our world. On weighing, proposition fails to prove to us how AI necessarily has done more harm than good, and while we on side opposition also of course agree on the disadvantages AI use in therapy may have, we don't generalize things like proposition and totally disregard the amount of people it has helped. Given the current circumstances already mentioned and to be treated more thoroughly throughout my speech, we firmly stand behind the objective truth that AI has ultimately helped in working towards the same goal both prop and op are ultimately following in the end, which is helping the people and helping them get better access to therapy. Proposition fails to deny the benefits AI offers us or cannot offer us any other short-term idea on how to improve the status quo, which is vital in our current society, as I'll prove again, while we weigh things differently here. And we focus on the urgency right now and how AI also has potential to get better over time, seeing as it has already been of assistance. Now, first I'd like to rebut. So, proposition is basically, as I already stated in my introduction, saying that waiting days, weeks, if not months, to see a real therapist, while, first of all, they're not considering that there could be bad therapists out there as well, even in human form. They're basically saying that instead of getting immediate help from whatever source, they should just wait. So the negative aspects proposition is mentioning here, like suicide, self-harm, these could all occur in this time as well because you feel even more helpless and even more alone, and the fact that you're not able to get to a therapist signals to you that even the therapist is not focusing on you, and so you might feel even more neglected. Also, you mentioned the point that AI stops people from getting real therapy. And saying that AI is cheaper and the more easier thing to do. So 2 points on that. First of all, I think this actually plays for our side, which I will prove in this later on in my speech. And second, you say that AI simply affirming your actions tricks you into believe you got treated, which is also not true, which I'll rebut through my arguments. So, now coming to opposition's first substantive, which is the status quo of the lacking and imperfect infrastructure of therapy and the fatal results these lead to. In the US, for instance, a study conducted by the National Center for Disease Control and Prevention displays shocking numbers. 52.9 million are actively suffering from a mental illness. That's more than 1/5 of US adults, ladies and gentlemen. And in 2023, the leading cause of death was suicide, with over 49,000 people dying with it, and that's not even counting the suicide attempts and thoughts. Doesn't sound like much compared to the other number, but to visualize, that's one death every 11 minutes caused by people not getting help on time. And every 11 minutes, someone is putting their thoughts that couldn't get tended to earlier into action. The most common thing people think after their close ones, like family and friends, commit suicide is if only. If only they'd been able to notice something, if only they'd been able to interfere, and if only they had received proper treatment early enough. And now these people gave away their life because they believed there was no potential for improving their life at the moment, because they were suffering from mental diseases, because all seemed hopeless. And why? This help is simply not accessible.
POI?
No, thank you. The WHO Mental Health Atlas reports a global median of 13 mental health workers per 100,000 people. In low and lower middle income countries, there are fewer than one psychiatrist per 100,000 people. In some rural areas of South Africa specifically, numbers sink as low as 0.03 per 100,000. So what do these numbers show us? First of all, the lack of workers and professionals working in the mental health psychology therapy sector in general. The lack of workforce leads to a packed, overflowing system with no space for everyone in desperate need of these procedures. Second, this demonstrates the disparities among the income groups. The development aid data clearly shows the median number of psychiatrists sink lower with the amount of income. Higher numbers of not only mental health workers in general, but also specialized workers for adults, for instance, could be found only in high-income countries. How is this fair? How, ladies and gentlemen, is this a working status quo that proposition prefers that makes them think AI as an extra supporter attempting to help with this matter has done more harm? The global shortage of therapists isn't a problem that we can solve instantly. It'll take time, it'll take effort, but what matters is that it is needed in our world. As previously mentioned before, we live in an era of increasingly high suicide rates, dissatisfaction with life, and psychological issues. However, until the advancements and chances are truly implemented to our world, how will we supply the people out there right now waiting for some type of help? Are we just going to ignore them, or like Proposition is trying to make us believe, say having no option is better than the option of AI? And this is without even taking the positive aspects of AI they decided to strategically ignore into account. Firstly, I'd like to ask side Proposition if there's anything that may even come close to the accessibility of AI. It first removes the search for therapy, which may be confusing and lead to complicated reservation processes and long wait lists, as I already mentioned. There's no classic barrier that hinders people from getting therapy when it comes to AI. For example, the availability of therapists, getting help exactly when they need it, and no cost barrier, which I think that side Proposition won't be able to rebut, because for AI you don't have to pay anything, and my statistics show that in low-income countries it's even more difficult to get to actual therapists. No, thank you. Also, there is a less prominent mental barrier. The stigma surrounding getting therapy, especially amongst minorities, fearing even more judgment from human therapists, often stops people from getting to therapy as well. Proposition fails to realize how much of a border has to be overcome in the first place to actually go and talk to an actual person about problems they're ashamed of, problems they may fear, problems they don't even want to accept that they have yet. Now, AI, of course, does not serve as a real therapist. We're not saying that AI doesn't have any issues whatsoever. It cannot replace deep human therapy. But AI tools, for instance, may give you prompts on reflecting and journaling about your feelings, and this may offer sort of relief in the moment. Sometimes even real therapists can't offer directly, as they don't have one person they need to focus on and take care of, and lead to lowering the severity of symptoms before people reach crisis-level breakdowns. So, denying this option people are given that has actually proven to be helpful and a necessity in our current world is just cruel to the people in desperate need of therapy. So proud to oppose. Thank you for listening.
The side of opposition in this debate took a generous amount of time explaining how exactly our case doesn't work, even though I will show you that our first argument still stands. However, they never actually provided me a mechanism as to how AI specifically will help those people, how AI specifically will fix those problems. They mentioned, firstly, availability and urgency, which is something I will go now in the rebuild allegations, and as well as accessibility and the lack of workforce. Now, the stance of the side of Proposition in this debate is, as probably you can already tell from our first arguments, that getting bad help when it comes to mental health issues is much worse than getting no help at all. Firstly, we'll already mechanize that if you have severe mental health issues, you are bumped up to the top of the waiting list and you will get proper services for your issues. However, if your problems are less substantial, AI can very easily water them down. AI can give you very general tips maybe, however, they cannot actually help you, and if AI leads you into the wrong direction, due to the vulnerable state of the mental health of an individual who already has issues, any slight step in the wrong direction will need even more and more mechanisms to fix it. They will actually need to get additional help later on because AI cannot provide sufficient help. As we explained, firstly, for specific vulnerable groups, and then our entire first argument was about how AI cannot actually achieve those positive impacts claimed by the side of opposition. So basically, what happens when AI is included into therapy and into mental health is it oversaturates the future mental health market and mental health entire job market because of this insufficient help. However, now let's go into urgency. Why exactly this urgency falls? Again, similar mechanisms as we already explained in first proposition. Because if your issues are urgent, again, you will be bumped up from on the top of the wait list. There are still people, yes, we have a work crisis, however, on the sense of the self-proposition still remains the same. AI does not fix that, and in my argument later on, I will also explain that even if nothing stands on our side, we still win on our single-handedly on our third argument alone, which is the cost to the environment. However, let me now go on with the negations. Let me go into the negation again of accessibility. Yes, AI is accessible to everyone, and that is exactly what makes AI bad in our world, because AI cannot provide sufficient help. It gives generalized mechanisms. People are already struggling with, if people are already struggling and they are going to AI, and firstly, the important mechanism, they are introspecting, they are typing in the AI prompts from their point of view, meaning that they cannot actually fully express. For example, in conversation, things flow spontaneously. The psychologist does psychoanalysis, which is an important part of psychology. However, they also do behavior therapy. We are talking about cognitive and behavior therapy. And behavior therapy, as explained in first prop, is very important because it is the most objective form of therapy we have so far, because your cognitive state translates itself through your body language, and body language is very important. What therapist does is they show a mirror to the patients. They firstly give them a reality check about their problems. They show them who they are. They confront them with what they are, instead of, the glazing that AI does on the side of opposition. Just a second. Introspection is inherently subjective way of expressing. Is the only way you can express yourself to the AI, because you're introspecting your thoughts. However, it is also inherently subjective because you're going through what's going on in your head, and you have to put it in word by word. You have to put in this order to the AI, meaning that you will probably phrase it differently than you would phrase it in a spontaneous conversation. Yes, I will take your POI now.
Did you say, since you used the word reality check, that it would harm people on the risk of suicide even more?
No. Look, the main problem why we have such a big saturation of people in the mental health sector is oftentimes the false perception of their problem. A lot of the time, therapists, yes, while they do provide people with actual, exercises and things and routines that they can do, they also provide them with a more clearer image. Yes, you may have problems, however, you also have this and this and this. The major part of therapy is being thankful for what you have, acknowledging what you have, and you're not going to tell AI, I'm actually quite privileged white child. I'm going to tell AI, I feel very bad about myself. Meaning this, what you tell AI is the response you will get, meaning it can just feed into your problems more, which brings me to a very important point, which is AI psychosis, which happens when already mentally people with mental health issues, when they express things to AI, they can either get attached, which is there has been a huge increase of cases where people get attached to AI, where people go to AI because it feeds them with self-promotion and it puts them above everybody, it feeds their ego. However, this is sometimes bad. One of the mental health issues is narcissism, by the way, which is also something that needs to be taken care of by a medical professional, because AI cannot necessarily recognize it's a form of narcissism from the way a person is typing things into the chat box or into the app or whatever. No, thank you. Now, let me go to my third argument, which is the AI causes active harm to the environment. How does it cause harm? Because it uses huge amounts of water resources for cooling its search engines. So, for example, in UAE, in Saudi Arabia, and in Qatar, more than 500 liters per capita per day are spent on cooling the search engines. And as the use of AI goes up, so does demand for powerful data, meaning even more water resources are used for actual cooling of these engines, and all of this is redundant at the point where AI doesn't really do much in therapy in the first place. So, also the ones affected by it are vulnerable groups, because in those countries, those are the countries that deal with drought the most, those are the countries that need water the most, and they're the ones suffering due to these cooling engines. We are against all AI, but especially AI in therapy, because we have proven through our first two arguments why it doesn't work. Now, also, there is basically this simple likelihood analysis analysis on which side this harm is lessened, because on both sides harm exists. However, on our side it is much less. No, I'm sorry. We say that AI did more harm in the past because of this even bigger load of people talking about it, and you need a lot of prompts in order to correctly express yourself and stuff like that. Also, this is very urgent. Because we are currently dealing with huge water resources crisis, with huge environmental crisis. This water could be used for products, could be used for literally anything else that could actually benefit society. Therefore, it did much more harm than good in the first place, and this is very clear proposition. Thank you.
Some of you may have experienced this situation. Your friend tells you about something that they're getting tired of, for example, but she or he has been doing this every single day. You get tired, you get drained, because your friend sees you as their therapist. Honorable judges, respected team proposition, and dear audience. I'm Caroline, the second speaker for team opposition. In today's speech, I will talk about, first of all, the AI's unbiased care. Second of all, how much technology, of course including AI, has improved in the recent years. But first, allow me to rebut the proposition's claims and arguments first. Opposition has claimed that AI overall is very bad for us in general, and that it also harms the environment. I would like you to make it maybe a bit more clear, because there are many forms of AI, and some are actually helpful, and it makes the engine cooling maybe a bit more worth it. No, thank you. Another claim is that you said that AI is, first of all, very accessible, which I agree on, but that AI is also very bad, and that it only gives you generalized advice. But as my first speaker said in her speech, what if it happens before you can actually get real therapy? What if you get suicidal thoughts before you get real therapy, and you don't turn to AI? I mean, AI could have prevented this. AI could have given you advice. And no, thank you. And this is what I will also talk about in my own speech. Another one is that the first speaker of team opposition also said that you have people around you, for example, friends. This is what I'm going to also rebut in my own speech. Okay, now coming to presenting my own arguments. First of all, how AI is unbiased and consistent in terms of when having conversations with the users. Yes, please.
At the point where AI is programmed by people, it has bias.
It has bias. Well, I'm going to elaborate that point, and maybe it will answer your question. I believe that we all have that one friend who's like your therapist. On social media, they use the phrase, "My best friend is my therapist." AI can actually take this role too, but not as a friend, but as a therapist. In fact, AI is probably more similar to a therapist than a friend is similar to a therapist. But before I argue why AI and a chatbot shows similarities, I'm going to list the obligations and the way that therapists heal or make a person feel better. They often create a safe space for the patient, a private space, so that information never goes out. They are not judgmental, and they do build a relationship based on trust. And AI does the same. It creates a safe space, and their opinion is neutral. You won't be judged. And what are the differences between an AI and a therapist? A therapist is, of course, human. They also feel what the patient is feeling at the same time. And when things may get a bit overwhelming, they still have to find a way to talk them out of their thoughts, for example, even if they can relate in some way. Another possibility is that, for example, a therapist that the therapist is having a bad day and their mood fluctuates, and if it's someone who's easily swayed by them, therapy can feel as if they're neglecting your worries and feelings for some reason. However, if it were AI that doesn't feel anything, but is designed to make the patient think they're showing conscience, then the AI can take all the weight the therapist had to deal with. They give advice like a therapist. They diagnose them in some way with multiple possibilities of what they could have, like a therapist, and but their mood doesn't fluctuate like a human therapist. But let me make one point very clear. AI is not there to replace therapists completely. They're just there to assist a therapist in some way. Now, coming to my second point on improvement in AI in the last few years. Modern AI has improved a lot. For example, OpenAI has just brought out their newest version of ChatGPT, but also a lot of other forms of artificial intelligence have also been released. For example, an AI that focuses on education. So have therapeutic chatbots. They do recognize when a person is feeling, for example, anxious through the prompt. They again give you advice how to feel better. Or even ChatGPT can recognize when someone feels this way. I myself did an experiment. I told ChatGPT that I'm feeling down, depressed, and that I am starting to have suicidal thoughts. ChatGPT gave a response after multiple prompts with telephone numbers for centers preventing suicide. This is an example of them assisting a therapist in some way. In conclusion, AI can be our therapist for the most part. For example, at home, when a therapy center isn't open at the moment, then AI can be a temporary solution. AI can also act as an assistant, helping the therapist with emotional weight it has to carry. Plus, AI models have improved a lot in recent years. I'm proud to oppose. Thank you.
The critical mistake side opposition makes in this debate is that they are completely not tackling our arguments. Hello, I'm the third speaker of the proposition, and firstly, I'll be going through some negations of the last speech, and then I'll be moving on to our clashes. Okay, so the side of opposition has tried to imply that, like, for some reason, your friend seeing you as therapists is somehow a bad thing. We tell you that no, this is like completely good, because firstly, like, if you are from now on putting all of your problems to AI chatbots, like you lose social skills, right? That's the first thing. Because you are now all of a sudden not open to communicating with like your friends about your problems anymore, and that can lead to isolation from like actual human beings and so on. But like secondly, also it's not like we are that insanely annoyed by our friends being our therapists. Like this is an alternative that is completely valid on the side of proposition. In fact, oftentimes these serve as bonding moments and so on. They have provided no reason why I would not want to be the therapist of my friend. Also, they have stated that, like, through numerous times in their speeches, like, what if it's the worst case scenario? What if I have suicidal thoughts? What if, I desperately need this AI? Firstly, we have already mechanized through our arguments why AI does actually do more negative than good. But okay, even in that, if in that case AI still helps you, which is entirely possible because it cannot, it does sometimes tell you to kill yourself, but that is still a very rare case, right? We tell you that on our side of the house, you still have suicide hotlines, for example. You still have friends who you can text their problems to. You still have the vast majority of people have some safe space, and if they don't, they have the suicide hotline, which they can come to solve. Yes, please, to solve these problems immediately. Yes.
So what about our second speaker said how AI directs these people to these suicide hotlines?
Okay, then we tell you that AI isn't even needed in the first place. That's the first thing, right? Because it's essentially just an intermediary which does not matter, because everybody knows that suicide hotlines exist. No one is unfamiliar with that, especially with all of the awareness campaigns that are always happening. But also secondly, this intermediary is therefore only has potential to be negative, because firstly, it could not redirect you. It is still a possibility that doesn't redirect you, in which case it's done harm. And secondly, also, these things we have stated with our environmental impacts still apply. It still overall does damage, more damage than it provides good. Okay. Now that we have gone through the negations of the last speech, let's move on to these clashes. So there are two major clashes in this debate. The first I have basically already tackled, sort of in these negations, which is alternatives to AI. We tell you that there are many alternatives to AI in the most critical situations which matter the most, because we probably put most impact on them, right? Because someone's life could literally be at risk. Where you can, for example, the suicide hotline, or talking to your friends and whatever. And in this case, essentially, the side of opposition does not has no positive impacts on their side of the house when it comes to the most critical situations. When it comes to the this is not here. Okay, but the actual major clash in this debate was effectiveness of AI in helping people. Okay, so how does this? How has side proposition up until now presented this? We immediately in our first argument tell you the negative impacts of AI that they have, that the most important would be their subjectivity and confirmation bias, because it is built to satisfy you. So it will in a way, because it will try to word things in such a way to keep you talking to it, even if it does redirect you to seek therapy. It also writes a bunch of other things with which you could help yourself. If you go and tell him, oh, how can I solve this issue I have about mental health, he will tell you, yes, you can seek therapy, or you can do this method, and I can help you how to achieve all of this. And basically we tell you that because of the satisfaction that AI brings you, it is a relatively possible chance that you will not go and seek therapy. We have told you why you have incentives to specifically not move from AI to therapy. We have also mechanized to you why there are people who would, in our world, go to therapy that will instead go to AI. Why? Because it's easier, because it's free, cheap, 24/7. You may be open to going to therapy, but if there's such an easy alternative, why not use it? And you do. And because you use this alternative, and then you feel like your problems have been solved, you therefore then do not go to therapy. Yes?
But the alternative tells you to go to therapy and that they're not an active and licensed therapist.
Okay, but beyond also, with telling you to go to therapy, it also gives you a bunch of other methods that you can do. And with this, it gives you it always gives you options. It never. It just tells you straight go to therapy. It always gives you an opportunity to do something else, and we tell you that because it's easier, because you will see these things as like because you will see these things are as easier to do, you will do those methods and try to improve your life in different ways, which does not always apply, because sometimes you have like actual underlying mental health issue it has to be treated, where you need to get a doctor. Why? So you can, firstly, so that you actually have a professional who's going to help you, and secondly, so you actually have someone who can prescribe you medications, which does not happen if you never go to therapy. We also tell you that helping people in who have these meat-sized problems is not nearly as crucial. We tell you that if you let AI handle the problems of these people, it will, through confirmation bias, through the fact that when you enter prompts, you specifically choose the wording, the AI has no. They cannot see your body language at all. They cannot analyze you at all in different ways other than the words you put in. It will. You will feed into your own. It will feed into your own biases about yourself through confirmation bias. Maybe I think I have BPD, so I'm more incentivized to think I have symptoms of BPD. So I will put into ChatGPT. Oh, what does it mean if I feel like I have this and this symptoms? And obviously it will be like, oh, you have BPD, right? We tell you that you can misdiagnose yourself. We tell you that through this misdiagnosis, you can think that you have worse problems than you actually have, and in a way feel worse overall. But we can also tell you that you can correctly diagnose yourself or already have a diagnosis, not necessarily from a doctor, but you're pretty sure because this is 100% true. But it will not be able to effectively help you. Why? Because again, it is not able to actually analyze your body language and stuff. It is not a licensed medical professional. Just getting help from AI is not nearly enough. The side of opposition on this debate has come out with their arguments, but they have never actually given us analysis how AI will provide help, how it actually helps. They just say that it will help to you by talking to you. How does this talking actually make me feel better, especially if I have bigger sized problems? We tell you, okay, besides this, we also feel firstly, even if somehow all of the impacts neutralize themselves, we win on the principle. And secondly, the things they came out with in the last speech with the potential of AI to get better over time. Firstly, do not fall into the debate because this is a motion about the past. But also secondly, do not matter because there was so little analysis put into them.
At its core, therapy is a study and treatment of cognitive and neurological conditions. Therapy is science, evidence-based interventions, structured methods like CBT, behavior conditioning and trauma-enforced frameworks, and measurable mental outcomes. And if therapy is science, then technology tools that make science more consistent, more scalable, more accessible are strengthening care. Dear panel, there are 3 courses of action in my speech. I'll start with my rebuttal, reinforce our arguments, and then present the 2 clashes in this debate that we found. I'll start with my rebuttal. We'll first tackle the claim of the proposition that AI stops people from getting real therapy. AI helps with this decision. This is what we keep trying to say. It keeps saying that it is not a licensed therapist. It keeps trying to redirect you to a therapist. It shows you websites, suicide hotlines. And while we're on the topic of suicide hotlines, your third speaker mentioned this a lot, right? First, it's quite a bold claim to claim that everyone already knows about these suicide hotlines or just mental health hotlines in general. And any help that directs people that way is a good help. And you also admitted that it is an intermediate step and how it is not necessarily necessary. But I don't see how it harms these people actively if it's just an intermediate step, like you've admitted. The motion is declined. The motion is AI in therapy has done more harm than good. What you've just told me is it's an intermediate step. Where's the harm? Then continuing on with how does AI help? Our first speaker mentioned relief methods like journaling and just talking about your feelings does something. Your third speaker also asked, how does talking about it with an AI or just opening up about a feeling help? It helps
This debate, we talked a lot about how friends can be therapists, right? What is the crux of that? It is not what the friend says. It's about opening up about your own feeling and admitting what you are feeling right now. However you say those words out loud are going to be biased, just like how they're going to be biased with an AI. And we just don't see how you are telling us that AI has actively harmed more people than done good. Then about the attachment that your second speaker mentioned a lot, an attachment to AI, since but that isn't necessarily an AI thing. Sharing emotion gives you this bonding moment. That's also what you have said already. Attachment increases with an even more empathetic and biased human. So going to therapy, you are going to attach. You're going to get more attachment to AI. That is just a side effect of everything that's going to happen. If you share how you feel to a friend, you're gonna have more attachment to that, and if that friendship eventually fizzles out, you're gonna miss them more than any other friendship, right? So that is not necessarily a harm that comes with AI, but a harm that just comes with sharing up about your feelings. Then about the environment argument, yes?
Attachment was why people would keep coming back to AI. There is nothing that necessarily wrong. There are things, but not in the context of this debate, with getting attached to your therapist, because they are still providing you licensed medical help that AI is not.
Getting attached to AI is actually less likely than your therapist, right? And there are active harms in getting attached to your therapist, but that's not what this debate is about. And getting attached to an AI is harder since they're unbiased, and what they're saying is this affirmative, and they're just agreeing with you. You don't have the feeling like it's engaging in a conversation with you. You've even admitted that yourself. So you're not getting an emotional connection with it necessarily. You're just getting this connection between opening up on your feelings and someone listening to you with it. And that feeling can be replicated through a therapist. Then to the environment. The environment is severely harmed by AI, right? But again, that's the harm of AI. I don't see how it's harming AI, how it's the AI in therapy that has done more harm than good. And the overall use of AI obviously does harm, but not the AI in therapy. People are using AI every day, and it's not even a minuscule amount of them are doing that for therapy. Therapy, that is not really a valid argument since AI already has so many bad outcomes, yes, but it's again not what this debate is about. So, our side first told you about how the current status quo in healthcare fails millions. People face so many different obstacles like stigma and fear of judgment around therapy, and that's where AI changes outcomes. It gives early intervention instead of no intervention. It leads you towards real therapy, as you've called it. For people who otherwise fall through the cracks, AI isn't a downgrade. It's the first real lifeline in the system that has never affected it. It's the first lifeline that the system has offered them at all. The real harm comes from the status quo, and AI actively benefits this. Then, our second speaker, Caroline, talked about how much technology improved over the last few years, right? And how much of a loss it would be to not utilize this in the real world. Our first speaker mentioned that in her introduction. And AI is also unbiased. It's not completely unbiased, the same way a therapist is not completely unbiased. But they're not here to replace therapists. They're just an additional tool that does have its downsides, but it overall does more good than harm. Then to the clashes I found in this debate. First up, one of the biggest one was safety versus accessibility. Proposition claims that yes, that in their world they want to make it less accessible, but safer therapy, right? But in our world, we say AI scales therapy to millions, and humans obviously can't. And we have rebutted your argument of how AI is unsafe and dangerous to the active individual before. But even if we put that aside and look at just in general, in our case, AI doesn't necessarily compete with high quality human therapy. It competes with no therapy, and the harm of no therapy is far greater than the risk of AI. You cannot benefit from a safer system that you cannot enter, but you can benefit from an accessible one, declined, that provides immediate support, early intervention, and continuous monitoring. And because mental health crises escalate when left untreated, the harm of inaccessibility is greater than the small imperfections AI has.
We win this clash because the greatest harm in mental health is not imperfect therapy. It is no therapy at all. Then the second clash I found is that AI can't. Is how AI can't help you, as they claim, but we say it can help you. Even if we put all of our examples with the immediate relief and stuff aside, we still win this clash because it's about opening up, about talking about your feeling. Would you rather have a person bottle up their feelings, go on the wait list, and wait till they actually get to speak with a licensed therapist or a real therapist, as you keep calling them, and wait until then, which can actually worsen their feelings, and they're scared of opening up in the end, or during that time they get to tell their emotions and how they're feeling and practicing for therapy, right? Then the question was never whether AI therapy is perfect. The question was whether its use has done more good than harm. And across every clash, the answer is overwhelmingly yes. At the end of the day, therapy that nobody can access does nothing. AI therapy has done more good than harm. That's why I'm so proud to oppose. Thank you.
Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel. Proposition's hostile stance against AI in use of therapy, or actually AI use in general, which I will point out during my reply speech, is unnecessary and doesn't fit and adapt to our current modern world. Given that side proposition even agrees to the urgency of the mental health crisis, but still refuses to engage with the facts we present them with, shows that they are ready to neglect the millions of suffering people as long as they're not taking the risk and accepting new technology. So we have seen a couple of clashes here. The first main point being the harm AI creates in our society. So first of all, proposition argues that if your problem, this was their main mechanism throughout the debate. They said that, oh well, you can still get therapy if your problem is so severe that you can just skip the line and get therapy as soon as you need it, right? So by doing this, proposition is actually doing the same thing that they're criticizing, which is judging the symptoms and prioritizing some over others while neglecting the ones that have been in line. And these people are just getting called out as, oh, your mental illness is not as important as, this other person's mental illness is. So in that time, people will feel more down and more neglected and would rather go to something like AI to get some type of help because therapy is not doing it. Other flaws of ChatGPT they mentioned is that it could give you misdiagnosis, which is obviously true. However, by doing this, they fail to recognize that, one, people can also give you misleading advice as well, especially friends can do that too, as they're close and they can technically easily manipulate you. And also, another important thing is that they mentioned if you continuously feed AI something, that the AI will obviously tell you you're right. So if someone is already convinced about something, it is extremely hard, especially as an AI, to stop you from thinking that. So it's not really the problem of the AI here, because the person is already convinced that their opinion is true. They're just seeking for more people telling them, oh yeah, actually I think that's right. So what proposition is saying is that if someone keeps writing to ChatGPT, oh I think I have BPD, of course the AI won't be able to really tell you otherwise. And another thing they're missing is that after this diagnosis, AI will recommend going to actual therapy, and you might actually think so yourself after getting this AI diagnosis. Then you questioned how AI will solve your problems. Or our problems, questioning methods like talking to the AI, but as our third speaker and all of our speakers have rebutted this, talking to AI is the same thing as talking to friends, and we even clarified that there are stigmas surrounding especially like minorities. They might not want to go to their friends and talk about their personal problems that they're ashamed of, which proposition is totally neglecting and not looking at this from the actual people's point of view. Now, it is important to emphasize that while proposition and opposition are both working towards the same goal, proposition failed to convince us of how they will do things in a different way. Now, our arguments have clearly demonstrated the urgency and the need to act right now. We gave you numbers, and we showed you how the mental health problems that would require therapy treatment are definitely increasing. And our side of the house doesn't want to ignore them or put off care any longer. And Proposition obviously agrees with us on these increasing mental health problems and their severity, but on their side of the house, they simply criticize this option, which for us doesn't really make sense as there's something needed. Now, they aren't really actively being in help to anyone by being overly critical, instead of focusing on the benefits and how these could be taken even further. We need immediate actions to at least give our suffering society some sort of relief, some sort of easily accessible place they can turn to. And they have failed to give us any other accessibility option that matches the one of AI. The people both sides are trying to save here are being neglected on side prop, and we present you with a better world, surely winning this debate. Thank you.
I sometimes struggle with anxiety about the state of our planet, which, as we said, on the side of proposition throughout this entire debate, and that has been severely neglected on the side of opposition, AI is actively harming. Now, firstly, clarification, apparently in prop reply about, again, our stance on AI. We are against all AI, and as the motion is the use of AI in therapy, we are also against AI in therapy. AI search engine is something that we have already said in our third speech. It still has the same negative impacts on environment, and we say firstly, actually, I will analyze this further because we've already done it in our third speech. I did it in my speech, and now I will do it again in reply. Yes, as we said, firstly, as negation, if you have severe issues, you will be bumped up to the top of the waiting list and you will get proper treatment. Now, they constantly pushed, you will feel neglected because you didn't get proper treatment if you have smaller issues. I'm sorry, but those are smaller issues. If you do not have this, you have to prioritize. There must be a triage. There is always a triage. If there is a car crack outside, you will prioritize patients with more severe issues. Life stop, wear a helmet. However, because you feel better about yourself, you will probably not suffer as much. Your impact is minimal. However, if you go to AI and you start typing into it, the impact you have on the environment completely outweighs this 5-minute beautiful feeling you have from getting attention from AI chatbot. Now, moving on to why I am so happy to propose. Because on the side of proposition, we support science, as you said, the objective science of psychology, which includes behaviorism, as we have mechanized the most objective part of psychology, the most important part in any therapy session, because your body language speaks for your mental state. This is at the core of psychology, and this was never actually negated on the side of opposition. Also, another clarification, we provided many alternatives to chatbots that don't harm the environment. We provided friends that also give you the social satisfaction, that also give you social benefit of socialization, which oftentimes is lacking, as again explained in our arguments. Also, we gave the examples of suicide hotlines, which I believe are in almost every country. Everybody knows about them. They were there before AI chatbots. AI should never be the first thing. The same thing as you don't Google things. You don't use AI instead of Googling things because it's bad for your environment. The same way you don't go to AI to tell you to go to suicide hotline. It's just redundant and it's harmful for the environment. Secondly, neglect. Okay. Additionally, on the point of confirmation bias, why AI is not effective, if we touch up a little bit on this clash, the three mechanisms we gave you is firstly the confirmation bias, where you are typing in, you're introspecting. You go to the AI with some idea that you have a problem, and you probably have an idea in your mind about what that problem is. And by typing it in, you have a confirmation bias to type it in a way that will give you the not wanted diagnosis, but expected diagnosis, meaning the AI can misdiagnose you, give you false treatment, and again cause additional harm to the environmental harm in this debate. Second argument why this is not efficient was also that we have vulnerable groups that don't actually receive proper treatment from AI. They need specialized things. AI is also heavily biased by itself. This is very, very clear proposition. Never been proud of the proposal. Thank you.